Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. Today we're going to be doing another list of champions, but the topic is going to be the best champions, in my honest opinion, to one-trick for the mid lane. In case you are unfamiliar with the term one-trick, it pretty much just means that you play that champion solely, and you only play that champion, and you know that champion inside and out, you know all the matchups, and that's pretty much all you do and play. So these are going to be the champions that I feel like if you were to just simply invest almost all of your League of Legends time into, you're going to be getting the most out of them. This video will be made in collaboration with Pro Guides. I have a link to a free trial down below in the description that I highly recommend at least checking out. It's a site that aims to improve your overall gameplay, plus their cool feature where you can talk to high-elo players almost at any time. Definitely check out the trial down below. So right before we get into the first champion that I recommend you one-trick if you were to one-trick a mid lane champion, let's quickly talk about what a bad example of a one-trick champion can be. So in my opinion, if you were to one-trick a champion maybe like Warwick, a very simple champion that doesn't have that much depth to them, that's not probably the best champion in the world to one-trick, just because again, there isn't a whole lot you can do and doesn't take that many games to really understand how this champion works. So if you were to invest maybe let's say 1,000 games, you're not going to really be getting too much more knowledge on how to play this champion to better success after maybe even the 20th game. So now that you have an idea on what I consider to be not the best champion to one-trick, let's get into the list, and the first champion we'll talk about is going to be Azir. Now I've said this in other videos several times, but Azir does have one of the highest skill caps in the entire game, but usually these kinds of champions that have this very high skill ceiling are also the ones that are the most rewarding when you finally invest all that time into them. The amount of things Azir can bring to his team and the amount of things he can do is really just almost immeasurable. I mean, yeah, unfortunately he is somewhat weak at the very moment, only because of just the several nerfs he's received over and over and over. But he is still a champion that if you really truly know what you're doing, you can still definitely put in the work, and you can still hyper carry and make those crazy plays with the Shurima shuffle and all that good stuff. I don't think you need me to tell you guys that Azir late game is extremely strong, and if you ever face an Azir player who really truly knows what they're doing, it can definitely be something very scary to face. So without question, Azir definitely has to be on this list, but before we move on to champion number 2, let's go over what kind of build you want to do. So your runes can definitely be something along the lines of HP per level yellows. You can have 10% CDR per level at blues, and then the rest being magic resistance, and then you also want to have flat AP quits. Your reds can either be flat attack speed or flat magic penetration. It just depends on what you prefer. The items you want to get on Azir are as follows. You want the Zerker boots usually, you want the Abyssal Scepter if they have a lot of magic damage, else you can skip it and go straight for the Nashor's Tooth, Brightlight Crystal Scepter, Rabadons, and Void Staff. The mastery page is without question 12-18-0, specking into that Thunderlords, and you want to definitely max out your Q first, followed by your W, then your E ability, and ultimate whenever you can. But let's move into the next champion, and this one is going to be a little bit of a biased opinion, but it is going to be Zed. Now just like Azir, Zed unfortunately is not in the best of spots currently in the meta, but maybe with the release of Championship Zed, more people will start to pick him up, and maybe we'll start to realize, you know what, maybe he's actually quite good right now. But despite the meta, Zed is definitely a champion that if you one-trick and you really know what you're doing and you truly understand how to play this champion and that's all you really do, you can hard carry games up until a pretty high elo. Zed is made to be a very annoying champion to face, and there's a lot of people that just simply hate even facing him. The second they see Zed picked, they already start panicking. They already don't really know what champion to pick, because if you're the one facing Zed in the mid lane, honestly, you are definitely kind of limited to what champions you can pick against him. And God forbid if Zed ever gets ahead and even starts to split push, because unless you have some fed Jax or Fiora or even maybe a Riven, it's almost impossible to stop him. He'll most likely 2v1 and still get away, and he can easily split push the game to victory. All in all, Zed has an insane amount of outplay potential. There's a whole bunch of things he can do. He has a dominant laning phase, especially for a melee assassin, and he can do a lot of great things. So I think we can all agree that facing a Zed one-trick who truly knows how to play this champion to his maximum or very close to it is a scary thing. But let's quickly talk about what kind of build you want to do when playing this assassin. Your rune page will be quite standard, getting the flat armor penetration reds, flat AD quints, HP per level yellows, and then flat magic resistance blues or magic resistance per level blues, or you can definitely go CDR per level blues up to 10% at level 18, and the rest being magic resistance. The last one is usually the overall best one, but at the same time, again, it just kind of depends on what you're facing. Your item build will be along the lines of this. You want to get your Yomus, your boots of choice, whichever it can be to fit the current game that you're playing, playing. Duskblade is a pretty great pickup into Black Cleaver, Last Whisper is great, even something like a Death's Dance or Blade of the Rune King is very good as well. The masteries are going to be also just like Azir, 12-18-0, specking for that Thunderlords just because of how easily Zed can proc it, but Storm Raider's Surge is not a bad option, but you really have to know how to play Zed to make that one work. And your skill order is also quite simple. Q max first, followed by E, followed by W, and ultimate whenever you can. But moving along to the next champion in this list, it's going to be Ahri. Now, Ahri isn't necessarily an OP champion or anything along the lines of that, but the reason I feel like she's a great champion to one-trick is because she's always very good or very okay in almost any single meta. I don't remember the last time Ahri was just simply considered to be a bad pick. I mean, she's always a welcome champion. She brings CC, she brings wave clear, she has good sustain in the laning phase, she has mobility with her ultimate. Now, yeah, she is good at many things, but she doesn't necessarily excel at one thing either. She definitely has some good depth to her kit as well, where if you put enough time, you can definitely make some really sweet plays and really use her zoning potential with her Q and just her abilities together in proper sequential order. So in terms of why I'm putting her on this list, it's a little bit different than most of the other champions, since most champions in my opinion that should be one-tricked are ones that have a very high skill cap. Again, Ahri not the highest of skill caps, but definitely a lot to learn, a lot to experience and understand, and she's always just a decent or good pick. So with all that being said, I mean, let's take a quick look at what kind of build you want to do when playing Ahri. The runes are the quite standard AP runes where you have magic penetration reds, HP per level yellows, you have flat AP quints, and then you can have 10% CDR per level blues and the rest being magic resistance. For items, it's also quite standard. You want to go for something along the lines of Morellonomicon, obviously Sork Boots, you can go Luden's Echo if you're doing quite well, into Rabadon, Zanya's Hourglass, Void Staff, and just like every other champion, you want to go for the Thunderlords as well, so 12-18-0, while maxing your Q first, followed by your W, followed by your E. The fourth champion we'll be talking about out of the 6 main ones, followed by 2 honorable mentions, is Gangplank. Gangplank is sort of getting the Azir treatment, where he was just simply the best champion in almost every single way possible in mid lane and top lane, and he would just hard carry games, and late game Gangplank, all it really took was one great barrel, and chances are you just won the team fight and maybe even the game for your team. But on top of this, just like Azir, he is also not easy to play whatsoever. He has a very high depth to his gameplay. Landing the barrels properly and doing the triple barrels is not an easy thing to do, especially in higher elo, and even more so in a ranked game where the tension is just simply higher. His ultimate gives a lot of great global potential for his team whenever they're fighting in other parts of the map. I mean, it's a pretty free way to get assists as well. He's great when it comes to farming. He has a wave clear, he can surprise kill someone quite easily. And if you just want to invest a lot of time in a champion that's fun to play, has a lot of depth, and can definitely hard carry games solo, Gangplank is a great option. Now when it comes to the build for Gangplank, it can look something along the lines of this. Your runes will be flat AD reds and also flat AD quints. You can have HP per level yellows, and then again, just like every other champion for the blues, a mix of magic resistance and CDR per level blues. Your masteries will also be 12-18-0, specking in for that Thunderlords just simply because it's the best one on Gangplank at the moment. And for your items, you want to go for something along the lines of getting the Triforce, Youmuu's Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, Last Whisper maybe, or you can even look into the Duskblade. And for the abilities, you want to max your Q first, followed by your E, your W, and ultimate whenever you can. Now the second last champion we'll be talking about before the 2 quick honorable mentions is Twisted Fate. Now this one might be somewhat biased because he's personally one of my favorite champions to play in solo queue just because of how good I think he is for the game mode. But when you really think about it, I mean, he's just a good champion to one-trick. What does he offer? He offers probably one of the best global pressures in the entire game, being just flat out able to teleport anywhere on the map while also giving vision of every single enemy champion. I mean, sure, Gangplank and Karthus also offer this global pressure, but having the champion himself actually appear in that situation is just infinitely times better. Just even having Twisted Fate on the enemy team already adds an extra layer of depth on how you should be playing the game, because you know that he can at any time in the game teleport right on top of your face, going in for the counter gank or just catching you off at the bad time. He also offers some decent wave clear with his red card plus his Q ability. He has a lot of damage in his kit with the Lichbane, Sheen, his E ability, which honestly isn't all that bad, somewhat bursty as well. But again, the main thing is definitely the fact that he has this great global pressure with this ultimate, which is just simply designed to dominate solo queue if you have the good map presence that you should and also he's very good when it comes to accumulating gold because of his passive. And here's how a typical build can look like on Twisted Fate. The runes are going to be just like any other runes we've been talking about so far: magic penetration reds, flat AP quints, HP per level yellows, and either flat or magic resistance per level blues, or having that 10% at level 18 CDR blues and the rest being magic resistance. It really just depends on whether or not you're going to be building Abyssal Scepter this game or not. But following that, the item build is going to be along the lines of Rod of Ages, Lucidity Boots, Lichbane, Zanya's Hourglass, Void Staff, and then at the beginning either you can throw an Abyssal Scepter, but if you didn't, then you want to top it off with the Rabadons. The masteries are as well going to be 12, 18, 0 going in for that Thunderlords, and you want to max out your Q first, followed by your W, followed by your E, and ultimates whenever you can. Now the very last champion we'll be talking about before two quick honorable mentions that I feel like is extremely good at one-tricking is Taliyah. I even made a video a while ago talking about Taliyah specifically and how I think she's a fantastic champion if you invest a lot of time into her. She's definitely one of the more difficult champions in League of Legends to play and even to master, so in other words, she has a very high skill ceiling. But just like champions like Zed or Azir or Gangplank, I mean, even though the skill ceiling is very high, if you put enough time into this champion and truly understand how to carry and how to really use the kit properly, you are going to be rewarded and you are going to be an extremely dominant force within your game. She has a pretty decent amount of damage in her kit. Unfortunately, she did get a couple of nerfs not too long ago, so it isn't as good as it used to be, but it's still quite good. Her ultimate is almost like a Twisted Fate ultimate, except you can even block people off and make even more things happen with it, but at the same time, it is also much easier to mess up. All in all, even though Taliyah got nerfed a few patches ago, I still feel like she's one of those champions where if you just put enough time into her and you one-trick her, no matter maybe how bad the meta can be for her, or maybe if she received a nerf or two, she is still one of those champions that you can definitely do some work and carry games. But let's quickly talk about the build for Taliyah. The runes are going to be just like every other champion: magic penetration reds, flat AP quints, HP per level yellows, and again a mix of either CDR per level blues and magic resistance, or just simply flat magic resistance in general. You still want to go for that 12, 18, 0 specking into the Thunderlords, and the items can be as follows: Morellonomicon, Sork Boots, Rallis Crystal Scepter, Rabadons, Void Staff, Zanya's Hourglass. And you want to max your Q first, followed by your E, followed by your W. Now, right before we end off this video, there's two quick honorable mentions I want to talk about. The first one is going to be Yasuo. Now, despite what you may think, Yasuo has one of the highest skill caps in the entire game. If you're playing against people at your skill level, I mean, it's very easy to make a mistake on Yasuo and be easily punished for it, especially now that top lane Yasuo with the tanky build has been nerfed. But at the end of the day, Yasuo is one of those champions as well where if you put enough time into him, he can just make so many things happen to the point where he can definitely look extremely overpowered. That's just the kind of champion he is. Either he looks extremely overpowered and you really know what you're doing, or he seems extremely useless. But the second champion I also want to mention in my honorable mentions is LeBlanc. She's got one of the best laning phases of all assassins in the entire game. She's extremely dominant. She can snowball the game really hard. She can roam really well. She can make a lot of picks fairly easily and just retreat back to where she was. She has a lot of dashes and outplay potentials. I mean, she has a lot in her kit, but it is very difficult to know how to play her late game and how to close out a game, which is why I feel like if you one-trick her and if you know and understand how to do this, you can carry a lot of games, maybe before even the 30-minute mark. But either way, guys, that is about it for this video. Those are my best champions to one-trick for the mid lane. I do want to give quick shout outs to Foxshop. His video that he made for the jungling part of this is what inspired me making this video, so I will have a link to his video down in the description below if you want to check it out. Keep in mind that this video is not also specific to a patch. This is kind of just looking at it in the greater scheme of things, or just a very general look. But either way, I thank you all so much for watching and I hope to see you for the next video. Peace.